To help unpack this, I'm joined live on the news by Okpeoluwa Taiwo, Executive Director, Africa Bridge Initiative. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
All right, let me start by asking you, given the current inflationary environment, how would you assess the health of the Nigerian financial sector?
The Nigerian financial sector, as of today, is not robust. We are looking at the liquidity of the financial market. We are talking about the liquidity of the commercial banks and also the viability of the CBN itself being the regulatory body. But beyond that, when we talk about the inflation as at November 2023, we're talking about 28 thereabout. And as at January 2024, we're already talking about 28, 29. And as at today, what are we talking about? We're talking about 31.7% as our inflation rate. So looking at just within 5 months, we're having more than 5% increase in our inflation rate. And this has to do with instability of various economic policies, basically from the regulatory body, that is the CBN, as also from the state actors, from the government. So that means that our economy, as of today, the consumers are not really smiling, and the citizens are very much unhappy with what we have in inflation.
But what factors would you say are responsible for this spike in inflation from 29% to 31%?
The inflation has never been consistent as of today. Basically, we look at the Nigerian as an economy. What are the major causes? We look at the microeconomic indices that has been able to spike this particular inflation rate, talking about the unemployment rate, talking about the cost of governance, talking about the import duties and also exchange rate, talking about the forex market. Now, all of these indices bring about various ups and downs, talking about the inflation and the economy. For instance, we are talking about the cost of governance. And every Nigerian understands that when the cost of governance, the cost of running the apparatus of governance is increasing on every day. That means there will be pressure on the market. There will be pressure on the economy because the target of the government will be more on revenue generation instead of stabilizing the economy. So as of today, we're having too much of cost of governance. So if we can have a way to work around reducing the cost of governance, then the pressure on the economy can come down and the inflation rate also can be subsided in days to come. Okay,
so beyond driving down the cost of governance, what measures would you recommend be taken to help address these spiking continuous inflation rates in Nigeria?
Yeah, the inflation rate in Nigeria is very possible to be reduced drastically. It's actually very realistic, and it's a smart goal that can be achievable. But we must also look at the intentionality on the part of the political leaders. Because when we're talking about economy, we are talking about the micro and the macro. When we're talking about the macro economy, we are talking about the larger aspects. We are talking about what happened from the infusion of the economy from the SME angle. We are talking about the infusion from the regulatory aspect. Now, as of today, we are having the consumer price index going high every day. We are having also the unemployment rate going every day. So how do we reduce all of this? Because the cost of production on every day will invariably affect the increase in inflation. The inflation as of today, we are talking about various indices. We need to have a robust economy. And how do we have a robust economy? Let's start from the agriculture. Let's look at food supply. As of today, two things are happening to the Nigerian economy. We're having some palliative measure being brought forward by the government. And that palliative measure is needed. But the palliative measure the government is bringing on board is palliative on the part of the citizen. But from our own angle as economic analysts, we understand the palliative that is needed as of today is the economic palliative. And when we talk about the economic palliative, what do we mean? We are talking about reducing the import rates, reducing the import duties. For instance, if I'm bringing in about, let's say, about 100 computers, maybe say from China or from Ghana, and I'm supposed to pay about $1 million or thereabout to bring in about 2 containers. So what do we have? If that $1 million can be reduced drastically, what do you think will happen? The price I will be selling it to distributors, the price I will be selling it to the market will go down drastically. So you can see there are a lot of measures the government can actually put in place. We can also talk about having a critical engagement with the SME stakeholders, because the SME stakeholders, they are the real operators of the economy, not even the government. Government is just a regulatory body, but the real operators of our economy are the SME holders, the farmers. These are the people running the day-to-day activities. These are the people contributing to the GDP of Nigeria. And because the power of the operators are reducing, that is where the inflation is going. So let's find a way to have a rebate for the operators of the economy, because when the operators of the economy, when they are very comfortable, the citizen can be comfortable. But so today, what do we have? The SMEs are not smiling. The SMEs are really crying, and that is why the inflation rate is affecting every man on the street.
Well, perhaps we can take a cue from Ghana, which as of last year were able to drive down their inflation from 38.1% to about 35%. And now, as we speak, in the year 2024, their rate is at 23.4% when it comes to inflation. But beyond that, what do you think this would be in terms of impact on the liquidity of banks and other financial institutions in Nigeria?
As of today, the financial institutions in Nigeria, talking about the commercial banks, talking about the finance houses, they're having series of challenges also on their own hand. As of today, the liquidity in the finance institutions, the liquidity is not sustainable. And why is it not sustainable? Because the business are not coming up. The business are not coming up. The figures are not increasing. For instance, how do we have a viable financial institutions? We need to have regular turnovers from the SME. So if as an SME, if I'm not having a regular and consistent turnovers, what do you think will happen? My inflows into the banking will reduce. My inflows into the financial sector will reduce, because I myself, I'm not having consistent turnover. So you can see that for the financial institutions to be robust, to be sustainable, the SME space must also be robust. So you can see that they work hand in hand. So that's why as of today, the financial sector is not yet sustainable. And the financial sector, and that's why you can see that so many banks are collapsing every day. And like I said earlier on, some times ago, in the last 20 years, we have not seen any bank that able to sustain the economy of Nigeria more than 2 decades. And that is not robust enough. We should be having commercial banks that can last up to more than 100 years. Apart from the indigenous banks that we have that have been there even before we were born. And a lot of the new banks cannot sustain what is happening. Why? Because the SME are not finding it robust within the economy. And if they are not having regular turnover, their balance sheet is not sustainable. Then it will affect the balance sheet of the financial institutions.
Talking about banks in Nigeria, let's talk about the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. What policy objectives do you think they can come up with to help drive down inflation in Nigeria?
The CBN in Nigeria, talking about the Central Bank of Nigeria, and recently we saw what the CBN has brought, investing billions of naira into the agricultural sector. That's a good way to go. The agricultural sector is, like we said, is the primary tier of the economy of Nigeria. It is the foundation of our economy. And with all this while, we've been driven away from the agricultural sector. And thanks to CBN, CBN is doing a massive lot of work as of today, but it's not sustainable. And why is it not sustainable? Because we've driven away from where we should be. So the giant step being taken about by CBN, talking about bringing a lot of palliative into the agricultural sector, buying fertilizers, having to buy grain for the farmers, is a good way to go. But yet, that is not yet sustainable. We must also look at what can CBN do to improve the capacity of our off-takers. Every SME, every producer, every manufacturer in Nigeria, as of today, they need off-takers for them to have a sustainable financial outlook towards the next 1 year, towards the next 2 years. So the CBN must empower more of robust off-takers in the SME market, in the manufacturing sector. So if there are a lot of off-takers, then what do you have? That means the price of goods and services will go down. And the purchasing powers of the people will what? Will increase. And that means what? We can have a equilibrium point and the economy will be on a sustainable path.
Let me follow up with you regarding the CBN of Nigeria. Do you think this inflation would impact their giving out of credit for businesses as well as interest rates, for businesses or individuals?
As of today, the inflation will affect, it will affect credit. No doubt about that, it will affect credit. So an average SME that's always been getting, what do you call it, credit from the CBN, credit from the financial sector. Don't be deceived. As of today, you might not get the number of inflows you are getting in terms of credit in the past, because it will also affect the balance sheet of Nigerian as an economy. So those credits might not come the way it's supposed to go. And in fact, if we are looking at the credit, as of today, I'm sure we're not supposed to even be looking at the credit. We should be talking about empowering the off-takers. We should be talking about empowering the manufacturers, empowering the producers of our economy products. That's what we should be looking at. So don't let us go too much on the aspect of the credit, because if you are looking at the credit, number one, you cannot get single digits. That is very unrealistic. You can't get single digits because of the kind of economy we're running as of today. If we can have a robust and a sustainable economy for the next 2 years, then after 2 years, then CBN can be talking about single digit. But as of today, we can't have single digit. And if you're having double digit for credit as of today, for an SME, from the first day, that business is dead on arrival. So SME must not look at credit as of today. They should look at a robust angle, looking for off-takers of their business. And when they have off-takers, they can have enough liquidity as an SME to sustain their business, rather than looking at credit from the CBN.
All right, thank you so much for your insight on the news. Okpeoluwa Taiwo, thank you so much for your kind company.
Yeah, great being here today.